Hey there, I'm Alex Kidman, and on my wrist today I've got the Suunto Run, a slightly more affordable fitness smartwatch tracker device. Let's get into the review. So Suunto has a fairly wide range of mostly fitness watches out there and quite a dedicated community of people who really rather like them. I've not tested a whole lot of their watches in the past. I did more recently test their Aqua headset. And the Run sits more towards the lower end of their pricing space. Here in Australia, it'll run you $449.95 officially, which is a reasonable amount to pay for what is mostly a fitness watch, although it does have some smartwatch features. In design terms, we're talking a 46mm watch with an AMOLED display with a resolution of 466 by 466 pixels. Controls sit by default on the right-hand side of the watch face, with an upper button used mainly for fast-launching exercise routines, a digital crown for selection, and beneath it a simple back button. The interface is also touch-sensitive, but it's kind of slow, it's kind of sluggish. Pretty clearly, this is a watch that's designed mostly to be used with buttons, and that's fine because obviously if you're exercising, hitting those touch zones can be that little bit more difficult, I find. Suunto sells the Suunto Run in Australia in 4 different colour finishes: all black, coral orange, forest grey or lime. They sent me the all black variant, presumably that one also sells rather well in New Zealand, I suspect, and it's certainly an apt name for a watch, which is of course bright fuchsia pink. Alright, it's not, I was just checking if you were still paying attention. It's black. It's very black. It doesn't photograph terribly well as a result, but it's fine. It's nicely nondescript, and I do like the idea that you can have a nondescript sports watch like this, or you can have a really bright, showy one if that's more your style. Suunto also provides small and large straps with the Suunto Run, along with a small connection pin that I suspect if you weren't careful you could lose very easily. It does clip nicely into place. It took me a little bit of work to get it on place, but once it was there, it was fine. It's held perfectly well. For what it's worth, I've used the small strap because I don't exactly have big, thick, meaty wrists, but your own experience may vary. The Suunto Run is also rated for water resistance, although kind of curiously. So it's rated for up to 50 metres of water resistance, but without a specified IP rating. I should say at the outset, I haven't gone diving with it. Diving's not really my thing. I have water tested it. I had to clean it after a particularly harrowing experience. I will not go into that in this review, mostly because I don't want to get demonetized, because it's not exactly a pleasant story. It's in my written version of the review. There's a link in the description below. All I'll say is maybe don't be eating or drinking while you read it, folks. But I will say this. It can certainly survive immersion in water and has done so without issue in my testing, but I haven't taken it fully deep sea diving. On the performance side, you obviously don't give a smartwatch a prefix like Run without it being particularly interested in running style exercise activities. And while it does indeed track running, that's primarily what I've used it for, you will actually track a whole bunch of other activities, 34 in total. Now that's not as high as some other smartwatches and fitness trackers you can get, but it should cover the essential basics for most people. As stated, I run, that's my exercise of choice, so I can't really say whether or not it's a great tennis watch or anything like that, but those features are there if you need them. In terms of running, I really have very few complaints indeed. It's done a good job of tracking my heart rate, of generally tracking my steps, maybe slightly overcounting them, but as I've said before in other reviews, that doesn't matter so much as long as you're consistent, because it's really about consistency and patterns more than it is grabbing every single last step exactly. GPS accuracy has generally been quite good. I run some very familiar to me 5K trails and it nailed them pretty much every single time. All of that is actually very good. Equally good is the post-run analysis you get. So you get that through the Suunto app, which gives you all kinds of details about when you should be exercising, when you shouldn't, to avoid hurting yourself, and just how well you're doing across a bunch of different metrics, which are all laid out in a way that even a simple idiot like myself can understand. I do like this. A lot of watches will give you that data, but not really tell you what it means. Here, I think Suunto does an above-average job. The Suunto Run also supports notifications from your paired smartphone, although it does this much less well than it does the exercise tracking. By default, notifications flash up at the time you get the notification comes in, but if you miss them, they're then tucked away within the control panel widget, accessed with a swipe, and then a tap to get into the actual notifications panel. It's not a great setup for if you do miss a notification. It's just clunky, and I don't like it, and I kind of don't get why they didn't, for example, opt for a swipe in a different direction just for notifications, because it's such a core part of that kind of smartwatch experience. Most people do want notifications, even if they don't want other apps. Then again, there aren't apps for this particular smartwatch, and there's only really a handful of watch faces as well. This is a limited device in that sense. So it's really more of a slightly intelligent fitness tracker than it is a true smartwatch anyway. The Suunto Run also supports direct music playback, and here I had feelings of trepidation based on the fairly poor experience I had with that with the Suunto Aqua headphones. The Aqua headphones had a clunky interface for actually getting music onto the phone, and it had pre-installed songs that you couldn't delete from the headphones. Now, the good news here is that while there are pre-installed songs or pieces of music on the Suunto Run, you can remove them. I have done so. So if you don't want them, you don't have to have them. If you find yourself stuck without music, I suppose they're already there if you haven't deleted them. However, like the Aqua headphones, the Suunto Run headphones don't work with any streaming services whatsoever. So forget Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, whatever your music streaming service of choice is, it's not going to work directly on the watch itself. Instead, it just supports MP3 files. And look, unless you're kind of ancient like I am, you probably don't have MP3 files. But even if you do, and I'll pause here for a brief second and point out to Australians at least that if you own a CD, it's 100% legal for you to rip that to MP3. But I digress, sort of. Even if you do have MP3 files, the process for getting them onto the Suunto Run is clunky itself too, because you have to transfer them over using the supplied charging cable. It doesn't sit well on the watch. I'll get into this a little bit more into the battery section, which means I constantly had issues with files actually failing to transfer because the watch decided, no, actually I'm disconnected right now because I'm not sitting just so on the charger. And it also had issues connecting up to a Mac. It did work with a PC for what that's worth. And the transfer speed was glacially slow, even for small MP3 files. It's not a great experience. And even then, once you actually get into playback, it's clunky as heck. It frequently wants to just stop playing after a single track, doesn't seemingly recognize anything within a subfolder, and it does support playlists, and at least, unlike the Aquas, yes, the Suunto app did see that I had put music onto the watch eventually and let me create playlists, but every single time I tried to actually then transfer them back to the watch, it failed over and over again, every single time. And unless you just want to run with your watch, if you don't want to have your phone with you, then there's not much point in really engaging with it. I've done this because I had to test it out, but honestly, I just can't see myself using this in that way. If you can handle having, an arm strap with your phone on it, then you can get music much more pleasingly than you can by trying to play it back directly through the Suunto Run. On the battery life front, Suunto's claim for the Run is that it's capable of up to 12 days of usage under regular conditions, or 20 days on effective standby mode, basically more using it as a straight watch than a fitness tracker. It's worth pointing out that that 12-day figure does work from the basis of having the always-on display disabled. If you have it enabled, yeah, you're going to get a whole lot less battery life. During my review period using it, I've managed to hit around 8 to 10 days typically without too much issue. I can totally see how 12 days might be feasible if you had fewer notifications than I do, for example. Using it just as a watch without particularly exercising, saw it drop by a very predictable 5% per day, which does suggest that 20-day figure, yeah, that's totally achievable. That's the good news about its battery life, but there is a big downside, and the big downside is the way that you charge it. So it uses a custom charging cable. My understanding is this is a different one from other Suunto devices as well, with pogo pins and what's meant to be a magnetic attachment that's really, really weak. It is so super easy to have this thing get knocked off its charging cable and just not charge at all. It's really twitchy. I really don't like it. I wish they'd designed something better, but they didn't. This is one of my pet peeves about this particular smartwatch because it just is a bit of a pain to actually charge unless you've got a super secure space where it's not going to get bumped at all and you check it every single time. Other smartwatches do this so much better. So should you buy the Suunto Run? Well, look, Suunto's core selling proposition is to fitness fanatics. And I'm not a fitness fanatic. I'm just a guy who enjoys having a run every once in a while for both my personal physical fitness and mental health. But within that fitness fanatic space, I can totally see the appeal here. It's not quite as expensive as other Suunto watches. Yes, it's a little bit more feature limited, but if you just want those core experiences, it'll get that done with quite good battery life. However, it won't suit every athlete, and it's not without its issues. Music playback feels like a function that's more there to seem like a good idea rather than one that's been well implemented. The charging cable really isn't well designed, and at its asking price, at $449.95 Australian, you're really stepping into that smartwatch space, that proper smartwatch space, and for a lot of everyday users, those might be a better buy.